Greetings, listener. Welcome to Committee Quest.
Hello, and welcome to episode 0 of Committee Quest. Episode 0, or any episodes at all, have been a long time coming for us. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to meet our players and their characters, and a very special person that's going to be our NPCs. I think we'll kick off quickly, and we'll start with our first player, Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hello, it is a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you here, Tom.
Thank you.
Tom, can you please tell our listener a little bit about yourself?
Well, with pleasure. So, my name is Tom, and I am from Adelaide. I am a youth worker and a former librarian, and for many years I volunteered as a radio presenter doing shows about retro video games, new video games, and also the 1980s. I'm kind of obsessed with cars, and if I won the lottery, the first thing I'd do is fill a warehouse full of 80s rally cars. And that says a lot about what you need to know about me, but we will go into a greater detail in that later.
Yeah, I think we will. I do have very fond memories of Tom's radio shows. I believe one was called Bleep.
That's right.
Was there another one in there?
One was called Bleep. The other was called Zap.
That's right.
And then there was and then the 80s show was called Data Set, and that was just about a range of 80s oddities, really. So we covered a bit of everything in that show. Weird television, all sorts. It was very cool.
All right, awesome.
And I think you talked about the Garbage Pail Kids, which was this really weird ass kids movie. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. The Garbage Pail Kids, based off of bubblegum collector cards.
Of course.
Is what that film was based off of.
Of course they were.
Which was totally not for kids, but they then made a show for kids. But anyway, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can still get those cards, and they're quite popular. So, Tom, have you played many tabletop RPGs before?
No. You introduced me to these. In hindsight, I wish I'd gotten into it a little bit earlier. But I've never been great at trying to learn the rules of games. I'm usually the worst guy at board games, and I generally just am not good at concentrating with regards to what I'm supposed to do. Luckily,
that is part of the reason why I've asked you to go first, so we can
good. Get it out of the way before I just kind of zone out.
Can I cut in for 1 second?
Yes, you can.
I have fond. I've known Tom for a while, and I have fond memories of Tom and I and another big group of guys, probably playing poker when poker was really hip. I think at like maybe 2 a.m, and there was a lot of like, Tom, it's your turn, Tom. And it was probably also James, because I think he and I were talking instead of playing poker properly.
Yeah, I used to intentionally lose at poker just so I could stop playing. But sometimes that would backfire and I would win because I would take huge risks and they would pay off.
Okay, well
because I was trying to get out.
Well. I think that works well for our current situation, because I want you to take risks in the game we're going to play. So that's good.
Good. What
about RPG video games? Have you played many RPG video games, or any in particular that you've really enjoyed?
Yeah, well, I was going to talk a little bit about this, but I will. Yeah, I will. Well, sort of RPG light games. So I really love the Mass Effect series and also just the Zelda games. So Ocarina of Time is one of my favorite games. So I guess RPG on that level. And I've played a little bit of the sort of the turn-based kind of games. Some of those Japanese ones like Chrono Trigger and earlier Final Fantasy games and stuff like that. Yeah, but that probably covers it. But yes, I haven't played heaps because I'm just not very good at them.
Good. This is good.
Yes.
I'm glad you're playing D&D.
But what I was going to say is, luckily in D&D, if you have a really good DM, it's a lot less daunting, and we've definitely got a good DM in Stuart. Just saying.
That's adorable.
Aw.
You're not getting any extra XP for that. All right.
Damn. Okay.
So, what are some of the big pop culture influences on you? What's been an influence for you in pop culture?
All right. Well, it's pretty big, but I'll try and do it as quickly as I can. Star Wars and James Bond. As I said, if I was stuck on a desert island with only one DVD box set, it would be the James Bond complete collection. I think it's also because I have a bit of a love of history, and I like seeing how the series has evolved over the decades. In good and bad ways in some respects. But
for sure.
I love so much dystopian sci-fi as well. Blade Runner, RoboCop, Matrix, Children of Men, Mad Max, and lots of others. Sucker for everything with Schwarzenegger in it, of course. Commando is right up there as one of my favourite films, as well as anything just made in the 80s. Usually I find something to love about it.
For sure.
As far as games go, not a surprise given my time in radio, but I love old games, and I collect old game consoles. So some of my favourite games of all time are the Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge series on the Commodore Amiga, because it was just my first. It was the first computer we ever had, and my brother pirated a lot of games for it. And so from about the age of 5, I just played whatever he had copied off someone, and the Lotus games were just really good, and have stood up really well as well. Pretty much every game that Rare ever made for a Nintendo console, Donkey Kong Country and GoldenEye being particular favourites. Shenmue on the Sega Dreamcast. I'm a bit of a Sega Dreamcast tragic. I love the Dreamcast and all of its failure and glory. Power Slide for the PC because it was made right here in Adelaide, and it was actually amazingly ahead of its time. It's a bit of a forgotten story, that game, but the physics engine and the graphics were just incredible for their time, and it was made right here.
That's cool.
I also love the Mass Effect series, even Andromeda, which most people seem to not like. Uncharted is also great, just because I want to be Nathan Drake. So many LucasArts games as well. Just name a console and I'll tell you which games are my favourites on it. As far as TV goes, just everything you need to know about me can probably be gleaned from The Simpsons, I basically, in my childhood and even in my some of my adult years, really just shaped by The Simpsons and Simpsons quotes. Really, that's for better or worse, so much of my personality.
I think all of us are probably in the same boat.
Yeah, I think so. I think
our generation was partially raised by Matt Groening. So
yes, I learned so much about history from that show and other things. It's bad. It's good and bad. But anyway, that's me. But yes, so that pretty much covers it, I think.
Okay, cool. So, of all of that pop culture, if you had to pick one all-time favourite film, what would that be?
Well, it's actually something I haven't mentioned, but it's a movie called Black Rain, and it stars Michael Douglas, and it's of course it's made in the 80s, and he plays a jaded and possibly corrupt cop who arrests a Yakuza member and has to escort him when he gets extradited back to Japan. It's directed by Ridley Scott only a few years after Blade Runner, and basically, if you like Blade Runner, but also like the idea of 80s action movies set in Japan, you will like this movie. and it's not.
I can't
it's,
believe I
Yeah, I
haven't seen
forgot.
this
Thanks for
film.
reminding me about it because I'd forgotten about it for a while. That is a good
It's
film.
worth checking out. I'm not. It's not a perfect film by any means, but when you think about a movie that you can just watch over and over and never really get sick of it, that is definitely one for me. I always find something to love about that film, and so much of it is just the aesthetic. I like Japan anyway, and so 80s Japan, directed by Ridley Scott, is you really can't beat it. It just looks fantastic. And there's just smoke everywhere and neon signs, and it rains at night. It's got everything. It's got everything you would want.
You can't beat that.
Yep. It's just fantastic. So yes.
All right, so good. All right. So tell us a little about the character you're going to be playing.
Okay. It's not quite as long description as Ben's, but I like to think that I will reveal more of my character as the show goes on and as I make things up about him. But my character is a mountain dwarf, fighter class, and he is the sole survivor of an expedition of mountain dwarfs after they were killed by a forest monster that was shape-shifting. Since then, he has been convinced his survival was no accident and that someone or something is helping him to survive, so that he may fulfill his destiny. And as far as background, I'll leave it at that for the minute. And
Okay.
yeah,
And it will manifest as we go along.
yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. So, why have you decided to join the Committee Adventuring Guild?
Well, again, it's a very short explanation, but basically, a power greater than any living being can imagine told my character to sign up for the Adventurers Guild. It's really as simple as that, and we may find out why as the show goes on.
I think, Tom, we definitely will.
Is that like a Blues Brothers reference there or something? Or?
A mission from the D&D equivalent of God, perhaps.
Okay.
Who knows?
Cool.
This might be
Righto.
annoying. Ben, did you say your first computer had CGA graphics?
Yeah. Well, at least.
Can it be the Committee Guild of Adventurers then? Sorry.
Possibly, yeah.
This is how my weird brain
could be
works.
a thing.
Please continue.
That's fantastic.
And so, what is your character's main motivation? What do they want? What do they want to get out of life? Why are they doing what they're doing?
Well, he's motivated by destiny. So he really just wants his destiny fulfilled real bad. Though he doesn't really know exactly what is leading him, he is constantly looking for signs that he is on the right path. Not necessarily always the good path, just the right one.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And you as a player, what do you enjoy most about playing? Like, what do you want to get out of these games?
Well, I play mostly for the story. As with any game, I would say, like video games and things like that, I always play for the story, and also the exploration. I like imagining new worlds and the characters that I might meet there. And in the case of D&D, it's also just a great excuse to be funny and or stupid, I think, and that's what drew me to it, which I never fully appreciated before I started playing.
No, and that's the thing about this game is it's actually too hard to describe. You know, like you can't just say, oh, and it's like this and you do this, because for every group of people and every person, you get something different out of it, and you just have a different experience, and that's what I think that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
All right, that is awesome, Tom. Thank you. I'm looking forward to working with your character.
I look forward to working with him as well.
Is this like when the person at the movies, like at the ticket counter says like enjoy the movie, and you're like you too.
Totally. And then you're like, I can never come back to this place ever again. I'm never coming back to this podcast. I was also just going to quickly mention...
It's been real, Tom.
It's been real. I was also just going to quickly mention...
Oh my God.
I should have said this. The reason my character is in Largshire is because he's a bit of a New Age mystic. So subsequently looks for signs that might lead the way, especially in stonework and also in fire, and lets a kind of astrology guide him. A power greater than what he can fathom brought him to Largshire, but that power could just as easily send him on a new path going forward. So he is just kind of hanging out in Largshire until he's told what to do next. But he's definitely a bit of a New Age kind of into some of those strange kind of reading, future reading kind of stuff. But he finds signs in weird places. So yeah, he's also a bit dumber than he thinks. He's not a stupid person, but he does think he's really smart.
Alrighty, thanks for that, Tom. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that guy handles himself in the world. This will be good. Next up, we have my friend Ben.
G'day there. How's it going?
Hello, Ben.
Hey there,
How you
Stuart.
doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well. Can you please tell our listener a little bit about yourself?
For sure. All right. Well, I also live down in Adelaide, down on the coast. Although probably the hills are my second home. I've grown up between the beach and the hills, and I certainly love getting out and having a bit of a drive up through the windy roads and seeing some of the nice green areas up through there. Also hiking. Love getting out and doing a bit of hiking in the hills as well. My background in terms of what I do for a living has always been IT service oriented, so pretty good at lying to people about claiming I know things that I don't. So that's ranged from tech support to application administration, and all the way up to project management. So yeah, aside from the driving and the hiking, probably gaming is the next big love of my life. I've spent so much, or wasted so much of my life on video games. It's almost
not wasted.
Invested. It will pay dividends any day now. The same as me.
I'm still waiting, but yeah, that's a bit of a summary of me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So have you played any tabletop RPGs before?
Yeah, so like I probably back in high school, around 2002, I started playing Vampire Masquerade, which was the pre-Requiem revision of it, and well, I think you were involved in actually a couple of those games that we played as well.
I was. Our friend Kieran's older brother was the GM for that. And he was cool. He did those adventures in our local area, so it was all based around our neighbourhood, which was really cool. Yeah,
it was cool because we could. He had quite a bit of experience, I think, running games through the university groups as well. So that's where I got into it. But it has been quite a few years since playing tabletop stuff until you picked things back up with D&D. I did play also a very brief campaign of Pathfinder with some friends at the it was the bookshop above the Adelaide Arcade near the train station, if anyone knows that spot. But we used to meet.
Oh yeah, that's not there anymore.
It's not
but
there
I
anymore.
do know the one you mean.
I know the one.
I reckon I bought my Vampire the Masquerade rulebook from there.
Yeah.
In like 2000 and
that was the
2
spot
or
for
3.
it. So yeah, and then other than they're not really tabletop RPGs, but I have played a bit of Magic the Gathering and Warhammer 40k in my younger years.
Sorry.
MTG, that's it. Yeah.
Couldn't help it.
So yeah.
Please continue.
So,
Yep.
what would be some of the big pop culture influences on you?
Well, I spoke about gaming being pretty massive for me, and it is. So when I was really young, my dad brought home a 386 PC from the dumpster from his work, and that had Alley Cat and Test Drive with the CGA graphics.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so
That's pretty damn good.
But Test Drive kept crashing. Like, I could only drive for like, I don't know, a minute, and then it would crash. I don't know why. But that was
Short
sort of
test drive.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I couldn't even. It was terrible. It was terrible. I also had an Atari 2600 with my two favorite games on that were Yar's Revenge and Bermuda. So I really, thanks Dad. He was the one that got me hooked on video games. I don't know if that was his intent, but from there I bought.
Probably not.
No, not to. From there I bought a SNES, which did skip a few generations of consoles, but my games like Super Turrican, the Fireman, which I think Tom will correct me, is that known as the Ignition Men or something in Japan?
I actually am not sure. I've got a Japanese Super NES game called Firefighting. I don't know if that's the same thing. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll find out afterwards. But all the favourites like Donkey Kong Country, and then I moved.
Moved totally.
But moved on from there to like the PlayStation with Parasite Eve 2, Tenchu, Medal of Honor, and certainly Gran Turismo and that sort of stuff as well. So that was, for me, like the PlayStation was the gaming console.
Yeah.
And then I built my own first computer, specifically to play Battlefield 1942 because, again, you'll remember, I was spending too much time up at the gaming cafes in the city, paying money
I do recall that.
to play Battlefield, so I built my own, and sort of haven't really looked back from there.
Man, I forgot about that. That was about the same time we were playing Vampire.
It was, yeah.
That's bringing back some old memories. So that was 2003. That was when, we were in year 12.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's and game. And since then, it's like just pretty much anything that's ever come to PC, I've had touched on slightly.
Mm-hmm.
But look, gaming aside, pop culture references. I'm also really big into comics and stuff as well. And
okay.
So Judge Dredd is huge. I'm pretty obsessed with Judge Dredd. Hellboy as well.
Yeah.
And also like the Akira manga. I got that when I was young, and I thought that was the art style and the cyberpunk dystopia similar to Tom. I was just obsessed with it. I thought it was the best. So
yeah, it was my brothers. I watched the film when I was young, very young. Before they redid the dubbing on that, when it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I remember watching it again when I was about 20 or 22 or something, and they'd recently remastered it and redubbed it, and I'm like, there's a really like succinct, clever storyline to this as well. This is so good.
Can I cut in for a sec? Because I've known you for a very long time, Stuart, since we were very small, and I can remember, I think, watching Akira on VHS at your place when we were maybe 11 or 12 or something.
Yeah.
And just thinking, I understand none of this. There are cool motorbikes, and beyond that, I'm totally lost. This is bizarre.
I watched Akira when I was 6 with my older brothers, and I had no idea what was going on, other than it just was stuck in my head for like 10 years as being this fucking weird ass thing.
Yeah.
But I think like most stuff that came out of Japan sort of falls into that category.
Yes, I think so.
Those motorbikes, man, were so good. I just have very fond, like just rewatching that opening sequence all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hayley, what's your first Akira VHS experience?
No, I got nothing. But it's on my list.
So
good.
It's one of those films that like it'd be hard to recommend to someone who wasn't already sort of aware of it. I don't know how I'd introduce it to people.
I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but I did not enjoy it. I've never gone back to it, but yeah.
You should go back and rewatch with proper dubbing and a real storyline.
This is something
makes sense.
I think we all have to agree to disagree, because I'm a bit of a snob. I'm like original language or nothing. Like I don't do dubs.
Okay, so Ben, if you had to pick an all-time favorite film, what would it be?
I cheated on this because I couldn't pick one. But I think I can. No, actually, I will go with one. Originally, I was going to say The Thing, John Carpenter's remake in 1982 of The Thing. And the reason I don't go with that one is I have to make myself. I'm actually still scared of that film. I have to make myself watch it, even though I think it's really great. It's just a really harrowing film, and it makes me feel unsettled to even think about it. So.
I've actually got that movie on HD DVD.
Yes.
Do you remember that defunct format?
Yep.
So if you ever want to watch it, let me know and I'll get out my Xbox 360 HD DVD add-on.
Yeah.
And we'll watch some HD DVDs. It'll be great.
I will. Look, I say I have to make myself watch it again, but it's almost like I just can't watch it alone in the dark. Okay. I don't know why. I'm not a big horror film guy, but
I'm just thinking, like, if you're ever sitting at home alone one night and you're thinking, man, I am just not feeling unsettled right now. I really gotta pop the thing on.
There's the remedy for that.
Yeah.
But so the other films I picked were, one of them was going to be Dust Boot, which is the old Wolfgang Petersen film.
Fantastic
choice.
and the third film, to complete my trio of boys club films, which I don't actually think there's a female actor in any of them, which is kind of rough. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I think that one's going to win out just because I can sit and watch that film, like, it doesn't matter how many times.
Yep.
So good.
So I think I'll go with that one. I think I'll go with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Okay, that is a fantastic choice. I think, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, man. That is top-notch cinema right there.
And I think actually, I think you did actually were the first person to show me that film as well.
Yeah. So my dad's a big Clint Eastwood spaghetti western fan, and he got me watching that when I was very young. And again, that was in year 12, I reckon.
Yeah,
watching that film in the shed out the back.
I can't even claim that. It was a long time before I saw it. So
it's good.
Thanks, man.
I mean, I'm here to help. All right, so Ben, what character will you be playing?
All right, I'm going to be playing a character named Lyle Cruffiton, who is a male Lightfoot halfling, and he is a bard. Pretty typical character, I suppose. To describe him, I suppose as well, he's pretty nondescript. Blonde ponytail, blue eyes, slightly bronze skin because he enjoys being outdoors and reading a bit. But he does have a conspicuous birthmark on his right hand, which he keeps covered with a glove. He doesn't like people seeing it. He's quite protective over that.
So he's a little bit Michael Jackson.
It's a little bit Michael Jackson. They're not. Oh, okay, they are fingerless gloves. Yeah.
If any performer was going to be a bard, it was Michael Jackson. And
man, I didn't even think of that.
Okay.
How's this moonwalk?
We'll have to roll for that later.
No, I don't get that until that's a few levels up the track, I think.
Level 5 walk.
Yeah. So a bit of a background for him, I guess. So he has a noble background. And he's fairly well learned. So he has proficiencies in medicine and religion, and can speak Elvish. And he's pretty foolhardy and reckless at times, but never places himself above others, which is a bit of a polar for his noble family background. He
a bit conflicting for him.
Yeah, and he's always enjoyed like getting away from the noble life and dreaming of becoming of just and heroic figures, or like something out of a fable that he's read in one of his books. So he's very fond of merriment and good times. They're very crucial to him. But as is potentially also avoiding responsibilities. So he's pretty carefree and can come off as a bit cheesy at times. And I guess you'd put him in the chaotic good alignment, I suppose. That would suit him best, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so he would.
Why did?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
As I say, his noble background. He comes from a prominent merchant family in Crow's Bay.
Okay.
So they were ennobled by the local lord there at some point in the past. Lyle's always sort of been the black sheep of the family, interested more in the tales of his ancestors and music and being a bit frivolous instead of the calculating and often cruel nature of his relatives' business. So when he was young, he kind of rebelled and went and joined the Bards Guild, and that saw him pretty much all but removed from the line of succession from his house.
Okay. A bit of controversy with the family then.
Yeah, he's not. He's still part of the family by name, but they don't really want a great deal to do with him, and are looking for ways to sort of almost get rid of him, I guess.
Okay, all right. So, for our listener, you can get the map from our Facebook page, and you can see where Crow's Bay is. In this world, the committee has a guild called the Committee Guild, and that is like government-sanctioned adventuring. So, why has Lyle signed up with the Committee Guild?
Not for any real amazing reason, other than just he's just a travelling bard seeking adventure and fortune. Seemed like an obvious choice. He also kind of had nowhere else to turn. So on the road, he was potentially a little bit naive about how he was going to make a living. So the Adventurers Guild that was the glove that fit. That was the fingerless glove that fit.
Okay. And so why Larkshire? Why are they in Larkshire? Again, listener, you can look on our map and see Larkshire at the north of the map.
Larkshire, coming from Crow's Bay, which is right down in the south, Lyle travelled all the way to the north, which is where Larkshire is on the coast, from tales that he'd read about in Irongate. So he just really wanted to go and see the north and the mountain range up there, and also, he's been a bit of a vagabond on the road, and so I guess he gives off the air of somebody who's kind of on the run from something. Maybe the north seemed like a good place to kick off his adventuring career.
Okay, cool. And what is Lyle's main motivation, or what does Lyle want out of life?
Well, I guess outwardly appearing to just be a pretty typical bard and wanting to make a name for himself. Lyle does deeply wish to become more stalwart and brave, to do something good for his companions and even just the people of Amarin. He sometimes appears motivated, perhaps a little bit by guilt. He doesn't like inaction. So when if someone's in a time of need, or he sees something perhaps unjust, he has a real difficult time ignoring that now. So he's not that kind of penultimate good paragon character, but that weighs heavily on him not doing his part when he could.
Okay. All right. That can be very interesting. I'm going to use this sort of stuff to sort of weave it into our story as best I can. So now, as a player, what do you enjoy most about playing D&D? So we've been playing a little bit. What sort of aspects of it do you enjoy most?
Definitely the story.
Oh, yep.
Or just like being part of a world as it unfolds around the players and the effects that we can have on the world as well. I think that's really cool. Always been a big, lore buff. Whatever sort of other content I get into, the world's always what draws me in, and I can read for hours about it. But I do also like the combat, because it's just the best chance to cause a big mess and make your job hard.
Yes, and you excel at doing that. So, okay, that is awesome. Thank you very much, Ben.
Yeah, no worries.
Next up, we have James, my friend from kindergarten.
Oh, hi there.
Can you please let our listener know a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing, Stuart. I was born in Adelaide, and I live in Adelaide, which seems not very spectacular, but I I did live overseas a couple times. I lived in the Philippines for a little while, and I lived in the Netherlands for a couple of years with my partner, which was pretty interesting. By day, I'm a teacher of fairly small children, so I have a job where I need to be a pretty nice guy most of the day, and just I had a little think about it, and I think in a D&D context, that's maybe why I enjoy being a slightly evil character and just sort of get things out of my system. You know what
James finds it really hard to be a nice guy during the day.
James is role playing all day, every day, and he likes to play D&D so he can be
Oh,
himself.
thank God, my horns grow back when I get back in the house.
Life is the real RPG.
Oh man,
Oh.
That's not
That
true.
got dark real quick.
None of what I just said is true. He's a very nice guy.
oh thanks, man. I think that's. I can tell a little bit. I guess probably much like Tom and Ben, I do like my cars. I spend a bit of time reading about cars and working on my car a little bit less than I should. And I have a lot of stuff to talk about video games, so we can wait for that next bit, I think.
Okay, cool. That's no worries. When did you start playing tabletop RPGs?
I think just a little anecdote that Ben reminded me of. I think it was been about 14 years ago when I was at uni. I used to go out after uni, I think on Thursday nights, and just get very wasted, as a lot of uni people do. I'm past that now, but I used to get very drunk, and I used to get the last train home. And this was pre-smartphone, so there wasn't a whole lot to do on the train. And so I used to chat. I used to seek out this particular guy who turned out to be in, I think he was in the Vampire Masquerade Club. And I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, that guy.
They usually all wear big leather trench coats. I think that's their thing. Was he?
He really was like a kind of cliche-looking dude, and I'm not gonna.
I'm sure his name was Zane.
It was something. I think he had a ponytail and mildly questionable personal hygiene, but he was a very nice guy. But I'd be like, "Hey, Zane, tell me a story." I would slur, and he would tell me a story the whole way home. And one time it was so enjoyable, I think I passed out and missed my stop by a long way. But it was just very nice being like comfortably drunk and listening to what the vampires and werewolves had been up to that evening. It was
good.
Quite nice. So
that's pretty cool.
That was my first exposure, and I think I am a big nerd, and I'll talk about all my pop culture stuff in a sec, but I think maybe that guy, even though he was a super nice guy, I think I thought I was just way too cool to be anything like Zane, you know? Was younger and more arrogant then, I think, and I thought, I'm never gonna play tabletop RPGs. I'm never gonna be that guy. And now I think about a year ago, I'm in a similar position to Tom, and you introduced us to the world of D&D, Stuart, and I really enjoy it. So I've become a little more wise and humble in my older age.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. It is the greatest game, so that's a good thing. So then, let's hear about your pop culture influences, the things you love, the things that you spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, so probably similarly to Ben, I'm big on the games. Similarly to Ben, my dad he was in IT, and he brought home probably one of the first laptops around. It was a behemoth of a thing. It was probably weighed 10 kilos or so, I don't know. But I can remember playing QBasic Gorillas on there, and if you ever look that up, it's just some little sort of gorilla-shaped pixels throwing pixel-shaped bananas at each other, and you have to put in the speed and the velocities, and it had PC speaker. It was all like bloop and you know, I won't do it all, but
Was that the one with it had like you were on top of the buildings, like the skyscrapers?
That's the
and
one.
You threw the
That's
bananas
the one.
and blew up the buildings.
Gorillas. Yeah, I looked it up. I think it's vintage 91 maybe.
Yeah.
So that was it, and I've been obsessed with PC games ever since. I think Mum and Dad used to do a bit of good cop, bad cop. So I think Mum was kind of the bad cop, and I was never allowed a console until maybe I was in my mid-teens, early teens. They were pretty strict. So so
growing up, I don't recall you having a console.
No, I used to hang out a lot with you, Stuart, and another friend of ours to get the console fix on the old Mega Drive and 64 and stuff like that. But I was allowed to buy PC games, so I got real into the LucasArts adventure games. Big fan of the Monkey Island series, that kind of stuff. And I think Dad used to pirate me Wolfenstein and Doom and things like that. So he was a bit the good cop in that regard. There wasn't a lot of control over exactly what I played. So I grew up on the id Software games and stuck with them, right through till sort of Quake 3, I guess. And so I enjoyed those a lot.
They were good.
They were real good.
They were very good.
But I've never really given up PC gaming. I've put, I think a little while back, I was obsessed with Team Fortress 2. I played a lot of that when I lived in the Netherlands. Insert hat joke here, but I did. It was a dark period of my life as a hats dealer. I wish I was joking, but I can actually remember making I got to a point, because I'm a real nerd and I'm a spreadsheet nerd, and I work out how to sort of, how systems work and things like that. So I have a vivid memory of continuing that even after I got my first job in the Netherlands, and riding home quickly from work because there was a man in Korea staying up till 4 a.m. to trade several $100s worth of hat with me.
I remember this guy.
That happened. So that is
special. That is special.
It's the weird and wonderful world of TF2 and video games. So I put a lot of hours into TF2, and then more recently I think I put a lot of hours into League of Legends. But I was thinking about, I do love single player games, but I have maybe in recent years spent more time on multiplayer games like TF2, like League of Legends. But I'm very proud of being an honorable multiplayer game person. And I think in all the years, I've never told anyone that I had sex with their mom. So
that's good.
It's quite a commitment.
It's a good sign of a competitive video game player that you've never said anything about. Well, you might have said something about their mum, but you didn't say you slept with them.
Yeah, maybe other things, I don't know. But I do try to be, a nice guy in my regular everyday dealings. It's just in D&D where I let that dark side loose a little bit.
Excellent. That's excellent. What about films or comics or books?
Yeah, in terms of TV, I'm a pretty cliche kind of nerd. I think like Westworld, Game of Thrones, Altered Carbon, Rick and Morty, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all those kind of TV, bit of movies in there, obviously. Out of those, I think the world that I've gotten into the most is probably Star Wars. I delved into a little bit of the expanded universe, read the books a bit, played a little bit of the Star Wars Old Republic MMO, just to sort of, I'm not a huge fan of MMOs. I find it a little grindy, but I just did it to sort of squeeze the juice out of the stories a little bit more, because I feel like the tour's got good stories in there amongst the grind. Maybe a little bit like Tom. I think my favorite TV show is not a super well-known one. It would be Utopia, which is the UK one, not the Australian one, which is, again, arguably sci-fi, definitely dystopian, despite the title. Very, very dark, but I think the reason I like it, obviously it's well written, but also I feel like they put a lot of effort into the way it's shot, like really, really good cinematography, really unsettling music, things like that. I feel like they put a lot of effort into the details, which is what I like about it.
That is probably the most unsettling show I've watched.
Yeah, we watched that first or second episode all together. Didn't we?
I may have made you guys sit down and watch it.
And you did, yeah.
I don't know if I was successful in getting any of you
There's
to
a
watch it.
torture scene in there that is particularly.
It's real. It's very heavy.
But like you contrast that sort of horrible torture. I think what happens is the guy gets his eye cut out with a spoon. You don't see it all, but it's enough to make you feel bad. But then that's contrasted with like this beautiful cinematography.
Yep.
Like absolutely gorgeous. Like it's very well made.
Nothing in that show visually made me uncomfortable. It's the music. It's totally the music, which actually makes me feel a little bit sick.
It's funny.
It's really quite impressive.
I've never seen an episode of that show, but I know the soundtrack quite well. Which makes like someone sent it to me and I was like, this is fantastic, but I've never actually. I should go and watch it.
I tell everyone, I'm like, you should. I really recommend Utopia. I've like full disclosure. There is a terrible torture scene in the first episode. It's mostly tamer after that, mostly.
Yeah.
But the music is really something. I feel like I think it's Dirk Gently that I watched more recently. I think it was that, and they tried to recreate that kind of quirky, creepy music and didn't really nail it.
No,
I don't think
it just
anything
seems
maybe
a bit
before
silly.
or since has nailed the unsettling music quite like Utopia does.
If you were to pick an all-time favorite film, what would that be?
It's been Memento for a long time. I just really love it. I think the ending is a good ending. It's really a big requirement for me for a film is that it ends well. In contrast with if I find something that I really don't like, it's quite possible that I found the ending unsatisfying in some way. And that's not to say that things need to be wrapped up in a neat package every time, but if it's just resolved poorly or I don't know, it's hard to describe exactly what a bad ending is, but I think you know it when you see it, you know? So ending's really good. I think it's clever. It's got multiple layers. It's got the how would you describe it? It's not chronological. It happens out of order, which makes you think. And I just pretty much love most stuff that Christopher Nolan does. And just having a little dig around recently, and I found they are actually doing a reboot of Memento, and Christopher Nolan is doing it. So
Really? That's pretty interesting.
it is interesting, and I saved it for the podcast to tell you guys because I thought it was.
So
Well, that's good. It's interesting that you're telling us now because you were the one that showed me Memento the first time.
There you go.
So that's cool. I still watched that film as well.
So they're rebooting it after 18 years, and I'm like, that's too soon for a reboot. And then I looked.
Is it?
Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, is it Guy Pearce again as well, or is it?
I don't know. It's pretty I think it's just been sort of like vaguely confirmed, but I don't know if there's a lot of other detail about it yet. But I did have a quick look about like how soon things had been rebooted after it had just happened, and apparently the record is Spider-Man, which was rebooted 2 years after the last one.
That was. They didn't really wait for that at all, did they?
I think the quote in the article was, "The popcorn was still warm."
All right, that's good. So now I'm very eager, and I think possibly our listener is eager as well to hear about your character. Who are you going to be playing?
Okay, so my character is called Rune von Trapp. Somewhat similar to Ben's character. He's also from a noble family, but he's quite a different height, if nothing else. He's a tiefling, so he's sort of maybe a little taller than your average human. So tieflings being sort of half demon, but sort of humanoid. Yeah. So my idea is he's estranged from his wealthy family in Pencarth. Maybe I'm a little. It's episode 0. I'm a little flexible about this. We might, in between episode 0 and 1, I may rejig his hometown. But he's certainly, definitely from a wealthy family. He's also estranged, but unlike Ben's character, he's really unhappy about it. He is he's been excommunicated from the family, and he desperately wants back in. So yeah, that's I thought about it. It's sort of, it's instead of making a country great again, he wants to make himself great again. So,
Good. I feel like that's the same anyway. So
kind of. But he's not an especially nice character. He's quite arrogant. So yeah, he thinks he's a little better than the people around him. He's a swindler, I guess, in terms of D&D. You'd be spec'd high for charisma, deception, that kind of stuff. He's a kleptomaniac. He's a compulsive thief. So, which may be related to why he was excommunicated from his family. He might have gone a little bit too far on the thieving side of things. Yeah, that's I don't know. That's pretty much what I've got down for him. He's got red skin, sort of typical tiefling characteristic, horns, these kind of things.
Yeah, okay. Just for our listener, tieflings are a D&D race that they have big horns. They're sort of a mixture of a demon and a human. And in my world of Amarin, a tiefling is a result of someone's ancestor having made a deal with a demon. So you make the deal, and they say, well, at some point in the future, you're going to have someone in your bloodline will have a child that resembles a demon, and they may or may not be called upon to do something for that demon. So, that is a little bit of nugget of lore for our listener. Why is Rune why have they joined the Committee Adventuring Guild?
My idea is that after he was excommunicated from the Von Trapp family, he was devastated, and so went on a bit of a just sort of binge drank his way across the land, just aimlessly, I guess, being so upset and not really knowing what to do with himself. Has sort of washed up, I guess, in Largshire, and decided, okay, you know, I've had my couple of months of misery. I need to seriously. I got to get back in this family. It's really the most important thing for me. It's what I deserve. So he sort of sees the Committee Adventuring Guild as a way to make money, and that's his real primary motivation. He's got to get the money to rebuild his status, prove that he's worthy of his wealthy family, and I guess as a secondary thing of that, you know, if he gets a bit of renown, a bit of status, or some tales to tell along the way, then you know that he can later tell it at, you know, some sort of soiree with his family. So much the better.
Okay, awesome. And so why Larkshire? Why has he moved to Larkshire and not anywhere else? Partly
it's where he washed up, but I think at some point when he was towards the tail end of his self-imposed sort of drinking, misery wallowing kind of expedition, he had heard that there was a wealthy merchant. The name is Scipio Rudge, somewhere in Largshire, who has a lot of money and not fantastic security. So Rune had the idea that he may be able to swindle this guy while he's in Largshire. So he's sort of, trying to set up that scam, if you like.
So the name was Scipio Rudge.
That's it.
Is that right? I love that name. Excellent. We can definitely insert a Scipio Rudge into Largshire. And I guess we've sort of talked about those main motivations, like wanting to recover money, wanting to become wealthy again. Is there anything else you'd add there?
I think that's pretty much the main thing. I think, like I said, he's big on trying to charm his way into getting what he wants, and ultimately just get money. I've put him down as chaotic neutral. I don't think he really cares if he steps on some toes around the place while he does it. It's really get the money, get the prestige back at any cost.
All right, very good. Well, so as a player, what do you enjoy most about this game, or what do you want to get the most out of this our game?
I think number one, I really enjoy the problem solving. I like the creativity of it, of being placed in a situation and there's not a real. It's kind of open ended. It's not exact solution. You have to be a bit clever. You got to flex your mental muscle to try to work out, what's the best option that you have at the time, and maybe approach it in a little bit of an out of box way. I feel like in the past when I've played, I've really enjoyed that when you're able to do that, and just the flexibility that D&D allows. I think the second thing that I really enjoy about D&D is I like hanging out with you guys. I think I like the social aspect.
Hey, thanks,
I like
buddy.
the social aspect of. I think when we've played in the past, we've had some really good laughs, and I'm looking forward to that happening again.
All right, that is very good. We will have laughs, hopefully. I mean, I'm pretty sure we will. That is awesome.
There we go.
So that's our three main players that we have. I'm looking forward to weaving those stories into the campaign that I've got set up for you guys. Last but not least, we have Hayley. Now, Hayley is going to be a little bit different from the other three because Hayley is firstly a woman.
girl.
She's a girl, yes. And then also, she is going to be playing most of our NPCs, doing the voices of them and joining in our adventure that way.
Yes.
Yes. So, Hayley, can you tell our listener a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a newlywed, recently married you.
She did.
I am a high school teacher and teach English and drama, and have been, well, actually I was described once as someone with a portfolio career, so I've come into teaching a little bit later and have worked in radio and pursued performing arts, so I come from a theatre background and have done lots of other things in between, bit of event management, bit of tourism, live in the Riverland and grew up in Adelaide. And what else would you like to know? That's pretty good.
I think that's pretty
Overview.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you ever played tabletop role-playing games?
No. It's pretty new, so I've been playing with Stuart a couple of times. We had a campaign with some friends last weekend, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very new to me.
Okay, very cool. So, what are some of the big pop culture influences on you?
I am going to probably struggle to keep up with you 80s nerds. I am a big Disney gal. That was probably my formative pop culture influence. And I would say, always been a big reader, so I loved The Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley High. Now, of course, I teach high-class literature, but still love that. And Harry Potter, big Harry Potter nut, so that's probably a huge influence as well. At the moment, like every 30-something-year-old white girl, I am big into crime. So love crime podcasts, documentaries, dramas, but also I like anything that Mike Shaw has created. So big fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Good Place, and Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
But my fave is probably Schitt's Creek, which is a really quirky little Canadian comedy with Eugene Levy, which is so funny, and Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
Love
Nice.
Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. Cool. If you had to pick an all-time favourite movie, what would that be?
I had, growing up, a VHS, which on long play had Grease, Mary Poppins and Strictly Ballroom. So since it all three fit onto one tape, I'm going to say that's my favourite movie. But I, like Tom, could watch a Bond film anytime, any place. And I love Casino Royale. I could probably put that on anytime and enjoy.
Okay, very good. All right. So, Hayley, you're pretty much you're going to be the talent on this show because you have professional experience and training. Could you tell our listener a little bit about some of the professional acting and performing stuff you have done?
There is so much pressure on my shoulders to be flawless. I studied musical theatre at University of Ballarat, so trained in singing, dancing and acting.
She's got a degree in singing and dancing.
A degree in tap dancing.
You're going to carry the team.
Have also done Adelaide and Edinburgh Fringe festivals, Melbourne Cabaret Festival, and have performed at a couple of other sort of local gigs up here as well. Recently did Riverland Musical Society's performance of Les Mis.
Which was a fantastic rendition.
So lots of singing and dancing. Oh, thanks, Ben. And did some summer workshops at the Second City in Chicago. So walked the hallowed halls, comedy gold. So
Right.
No pressure to be funny.
No pressure to be funny at all. For those listening at home, who are some of the other people that have studied in Chicago where you were?
My big heroes, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
Yes.
I reckon Dan Aykroyd studied there as well, and a couple of others that escape my memory.
Matt Stone and
Trey Parker, Matt Stone. Yep.
Couple of particularly funny guys. So that's very good.
So I guess you could call me the Matt Stone of Renmark.
Okay. All right, excellent. So Hayley is going to be helping me out as DM, running some of the NPCs, which should be quite funny. I think it's going to be funny anyway.
I think so too.
We're going to have fun with that. So thank you very much, listener. That has been our episode 0, where you have had a chance to meet our characters and NPC Hayley, who we will be referring to her as from now on, NPC Hayley. Thank you very much. Our next episode will be a short one, which will be revealing some secrets to do with our players. Now, these secrets are only known to the player, myself, and NPC Hayley, and to you, the listener. Okay, so this is stuff that will be woven into the story as we go along. It might not pop up for a while. Now, you don't have to listen to this episode. I definitely suggest you do. But if you want to keep that secret and find out as our players do, that is fantastic. I'd like to say thank you to you for listening, and thank you to my players and NPC Hayley for today. Signing off. We'll see you next week.
We did it.